In World War II, Italy invaded Greece with 140,000 troops. Greece, with a smaller army, drove them back into Albania. Italy deployed 250,000 soldiers to North Africa. Britain, with 36,000 troops, captured 130,000 of them in 2 months. Italy had the fourth largest navy in the world. The British crippled half of it in one night while it sat in port. By 1943, Italy had lost in Greece, North Africa, East Africa, and the Balkans. They had been defeated by armies a fraction of their size. The Italian military collapsed so completely that Germany had to occupy its ally. What went wrong? How did a nation that built the Roman Empire fail so catastrophically in modern warfare? To understand Italy's failures, you have to understand Benito Mussolini's delusion. He believed he was rebuilding the Roman Empire. He looked at maps of ancient Rome and thought Italy could conquer the Mediterranean again. He called the Mediterranean Mare Nostrum, our sea. He gave speeches about Italian supremacy. He promised to restore Roman glory. He believed Italians were natural warriors who would sweep away weaker nations. He staged impressive military parades, thousands of troops marching, tanks rolling past, aircraft flying overhead. It looked formidable. It was theater. Much of the equipment in those parades was obsolete or non-functional. Some tanks were made of cardboard. The aircraft were outdated. Italy spent a fraction of what Germany or Britain spent on military modernization. Mussolini wanted to look strong without paying for actual strength. His one military success was Ethiopia in 1935 to 1936. Italy used poison gas and modern weapons against an African nation with spears and outdated rifles. Mussolini proclaimed the birth of a new Roman Empire. He believed Ethiopia proved Italian military superiority. The reality was different. Even against Ethiopia, Italian forces struggled. Logistics were chaotic, officers were incompetent. It took 7 months and massive resources to defeat one of the poorest nations on earth. But Mussolini believed his own propaganda. When he declared war in June 1940, he thought France was already defeated and Britain would surrender soon. He wanted to be at the peace conference as a victor. He told his generals he needed a few thousand dead to justify Italy's seat at the negotiating table. He thought the war would be over in weeks.
The Italian military that went to war in 1940 was not ready to fight anyone, let alone a modern army. Most Italian soldiers carried rifles from World War I. Their primary rifle, the Carcano, was adequate, but ammunition was often poor quality. Italian tanks were a disaster. The L335 tankette weighed 3 tons and had machine guns. British tanks weighed 15 to 20 tons and had real cannons. Italian tanks couldn't even penetrate British armor. The Italian Air Force still flew biplanes when other nations had monoplanes. Their fighters were slower and less maneuverable than British Hurricanes or Spitfires. Italy's biggest problem was logistics. The Italian army relied heavily on horses and mules. They had far fewer trucks than Germany or Britain. In North Africa, supplies had to cross the Mediterranean, where British submarines and aircraft attacked convoys constantly. Italian soldiers often lacked basic equipment. Boots fell apart. Uniforms were inadequate for cold weather. In Greece, thousands of Italian soldiers suffered frostbite because they had no winter clothing. Rations were inadequate. Italian soldiers were often hungry. In some campaigns, they went days without proper food. Malnutrition weakened combat effectiveness. Italy's industrial base couldn't support a modern war. Italy produced 1/10 the steel of Germany, 1/20 that of Britain, and 1/50 that of the United States. You cannot fight a modern industrial war without industrial capacity. Italy had virtually no oil. Every drop had to be imported. This made mechanized warfare nearly impossible. When Britain controlled the Mediterranean, Italy's oil supplies were strangled. Equipment was bad, but leadership was worse. The Italian military was led by incompetent, politically appointed officers. Mussolini appointed generals based on loyalty to fascism, not military competence. Many had little actual combat experience. They owed their positions to party membership, not ability. Marshal Pietro Badoglio, the chief of staff, was a mediocre commander who had failed in World War I but was promoted for political reasons. General Rodolfo Graziani, who led Italian forces in North Africa, was nicknamed the Butcher for his brutality in Ethiopia, but proved completely ineffective against British professionals. Italian commanders were defensive-minded, unimaginative, and overly cautious. They followed outdated World War I tactics in a World War II environment. Communication between units was atrocious. Different branches of the military barely coordinated. The Army, Navy, and Air Force rarely worked together effectively. The command structure was rigid and hierarchical. Junior officers couldn't use initiative. They waited for orders from above even when circumstances changed rapidly. Italian military intelligence was laughably bad. Before invading Greece, they estimated Greek forces at 30,000 troops. The actual number was 150,000. They didn't even know how many enemies they were fighting. Planning was minimal. The invasion of Greece was decided in weeks with almost no preparation. Mussolini simply announced Italy would attack, and the military scrambled to comply. Logistics were an afterthought. Armies were sent to fight without adequate supplies, medical support, or transportation. Commanders assumed supplies would somehow appear. Officers made elementary mistakes. They concentrated troops where they were easy targets. They failed to establish defensive positions. They retreated when victory was possible and attacked when retreat was sensible.
The invasion of Greece perfectly demonstrates every Italian military failure in one catastrophic campaign. On October 28, 1940, Mussolini ordered the invasion of Greece. He was jealous of Hitler's victories and wanted his own conquest. Italy had 140,000 troops in Albania. Greece had about 150,000 troops total, but only a fraction were on the Albanian border initially. Mussolini told his generals the war would be over in 2 weeks. Italy would take Athens and impose surrender. The invasion began in rain and mud. Italian troops advanced into mountainous terrain in terrible weather. The Greeks didn't collapse. They fought back immediately and fiercely. Within days, the Italian advance stalled. Italian supply lines couldn't function in the mountains. Trucks broke down, mules slipped on muddy paths, ammunition and food didn't reach the front. In mid-November, the Greeks counterattacked. Italian forces, hungry, cold, and demoralized, began retreating. By December, the Greeks had pushed the Italians back into Albania and occupied a quarter of Albania itself. Italian soldiers, equipped for a quick autumn campaign, found themselves fighting in winter mountains without proper clothing. Thousands suffered frostbite. Morale collapsed. Mussolini was humiliated. A small nation had defeated his new Roman Empire. Hitler had to bail him out. In April 1941, German forces invaded Greece and Yugoslavia. Germany conquered both in 3 weeks. Italian forces participated in the German victory, but everyone knew Germany had done the fighting. Italy had failed completely. North Africa was an even bigger disaster and showed that Italian failures weren't just about weather or terrain. In September 1940, Marshal Graziani reluctantly led 250,000 Italian troops into Egypt from Libya. The British forces opposing them numbered just 36,000, but they were professionals. Graziani advanced slowly and cautiously. He moved about 60 miles into Egypt and stopped at Sidi Barrani. He built fortified camps and waited. The Italian camps were spread out across miles of desert, too far apart to support each other. In December 1940, the British launched Operation Compass with just 30,000 troops against 250,000 Italians. British Matilda tanks, which Italian weapons couldn't penetrate, smashed through Italian positions. The Italian camps fell, one after another. Italians surrendered in massive numbers, often to forces a fraction of their size. In 2 months, the British advanced 500 miles, destroyed 10 Italian divisions, and captured 130,000 prisoners at a cost of 500 British dead. One British officer described seeing acres of Italian prisoners. There were so many POWs that the British couldn't process them fast enough. Hitler was stunned. Italy, his ally, had collapsed completely. He was forced to send Erwin Rommel and the Afrika Korps to save the situation. Rommel arrived in February 1941 with 2 German divisions. He immediately went on the offensive and pushed the British back. Italian troops fought better under German command, but the pattern was set. Germany had to constantly rescue Italy. Italian forces became support troops for German units. Even with Rommel, the fundamental problem remained. Italy couldn't supply its forces. The British controlled the Mediterranean. Italian ships were sunk regularly. Rommel's brilliant tactics couldn't overcome lack of fuel, ammunition, and food. At El Alamein in October-November 1942, Italian divisions collapsed almost immediately under British assault. German units fought on, but the Axis position was hopeless. By May 1943, all Axis forces in North Africa surrendered. Over 250,000 Axis troops captured, most of them Italian. Beyond leadership and tactics, Italy had fundamental structural problems that made victory nearly impossible. Italy's economy was too weak to sustain modern warfare. GDP per capita was half that of Britain or Germany. Italy produced 2.3 million tons of steel annually. Germany produced 23 million. Britain produced 13 million. The United States produced 60 million. Italy had virtually no domestic oil production. When Britain controlled the Mediterranean, Italy's oil imports dropped by 90%. Italy's population was 44 million. The army needed millions of troops spread across multiple fronts. This drained the economy of workers. Training was minimal. Conscripts received a few weeks of basic training before being sent to combat. They didn't know how to use weapons effectively or work as cohesive units. Morale was terrible. Soldiers didn't believe in the war. Many Italians didn't hate the British or Americans. They were fighting because Mussolini ordered it, not from conviction. Italian soldiers surrendered readily when given the chance. They weren't cowards. They were rational men in an irrational war. Why die for Mussolini's delusions? The Italian home front never fully supported the war. Strikes occurred in factories. Sabotage was common. The population was exhausted and hungry. Italy lost every battle because of failures at every level. Equipment failure, outdated weapons, inadequate tanks, obsolete aircraft. Industry couldn't produce modern weapons in sufficient quantity. Logistics failure. Italy couldn't supply its forces. Troops went hungry. Ammunition ran out. Medical care was inadequate. Strategic failure. Italy fought wars it couldn't win. In places it couldn't supply. Against enemies it couldn't defeat. By 1943, the Italian military had effectively ceased to exist as a fighting force. Over 1 million Italian soldiers were prisoners or dead. Italy itself was invaded and occupied, first by the Allies in the south, then by the Germans in the north. On July 25, 1943, Mussolini was overthrown by his own fascist Grand Council. The man who promised to rebuild the Roman Empire had destroyed Italy instead. Italian soldiers weren't cowards. Many fought bravely in impossible situations, but courage cannot overcome incompetent leadership, obsolete equipment, and delusional strategy. Italy lost every battle because Mussolini believed his own propaganda. He sent his nation to war unprepared, poorly led, and without the resources to win. The lesson is clear. Wars are won by industrial capacity, competent leadership, realistic strategy, and motivated soldiers. Propaganda, grand speeches, and delusions of past glory are not enough.